You'd never think that one of the SCP Foundation's methods for locating new anomalies begins with a spider web. Imagine a humble, intricate cuckoo clock, cocooned in silk, its hands straining against time itself, moving ever backwards. On closer inspection, the markings on the clock were written in a strange language, one that we've never encountered before. They were carved into the wood in completely alien characters, but the spiders? They didn't want to go anywhere near it. Eventually, we sent in some D-Class personnel to retrieve the clock for further study, but that was a mistake. The second they touched the clock, they began to shriek and convulse. All the guards could do was watch through the glass dividers as the D-Classes changed, aging in reverse at a horrifying speed, men becoming boys, boys becoming babies, until all that was left was a puddle of unpleasant fluid on the tiles. Would you believe this was still probably one of the nicer anomalies we've received? Pay close attention. You wouldn't have gotten this far if you didn't show potential. The Foundation sees something in you. But don't get complacent. Over 20% of personnel don't survive their first week of direct contact with anomalies, and most of them thought they were too special to end up as a statistic. You've been assigned to SCP-848. Oof, I hope you're not afraid of arachnids. You might actually recognize these, well, aside from the unusual size. We've run the numbers. They're approximately 15% bigger and faster than your average specimen of Nephila clavipes, better known as the golden silk orb-weaver or the banana spider. And as you can see, their webs are extremely impressive, 5 meters across in every direction, an exquisite construction made of extra strong silk, unlike anything you'd ever hope to see outside these walls. They're almost big enough to catch a person, don't you think? Don't get too close. If you just brush against one of these threads, you might get stuck. And then you'll hear it, the skittering of needle-sharp legs crawling towards you, clicking their mandibles as they prepare for their next meal. Oh, don't look so afraid. It's just a little Foundation fun, ripping the new recruit, you know. While these spiders may be anomalously large, fast, and strong, they don't show any aggression to humans. They pose no real danger to you. I just wish I could say the same for the poor things that get caught in their webs. Let's take a look, shall we? Of course, there are the usual suspects: moths, flies, miscellaneous insects. We've recorded over 300 different species of terrestrial insects trapped within the web of SCP-848, even ones that have no earthly business being in this corner of the world. But those are of least interest to us, frankly. You see, this web isn't just hanging in the corner of a room. It's anchored to a point, one that exists across an unknown number of dimensions and timelines. And when someone like that becomes a spider's hunting ground, it's going to catch more than flies. Take a look at this unusually large cocoon over here. When that creature first manifested, it was an enormous dragonfly with a meter-long wingspan. It's a creature that hasn't existed here on Earth for over 150 million years. As you're probably aware, dragonflies are the most efficient predator in the animal kingdom, so one that size would be capable of inflicting some real damage. Its thrashing tore through multiple strands of web in the process of its manifestation, until the spiders zeroed in and injected their venom. It's important that you understand this is a passive anomaly. We found the spiders out in rural Australia, where an unusual number of anomalous incidents seemed to be occurring. Incidents of creatures and entities that the locals couldn't explain. 6-legged armored creatures covered in metallic spines, shadow people with glowing ember eyes, 14-foot-long millipedes that made local pets disappear. None of these anomalous entities appear related, which raised the possibility of a portal effect, or some form of dimensional instability, producing these linked but variable manifestations. Even the deployment of Scranton reality anchors didn't seem to lower the amount of anomalous incidents occurring out here. We were just lucky that some of our brave field agents decided to go for a bushwalk. They found an abnormally large spider web where some unholy fusion of a person and an F-35 fighter jet were struggling for dear life against the hypertensile threads, and all around it were impossible 12-legged insects that seemed to have large human eyes. The jet creature had already been bitten by the spiders, seemingly more out of a defensive panic than any attempt to feed. The 12-legged anomalous insects were much more their speed. By the time we extracted the plain creature from the web, it had already succumbed to the venom. We incinerated it after the autopsy. Each of the individual spiders were captured and brought here to this containment chamber. The original web was destroyed with bolt cutters. Interestingly, the Hume level of that area increased substantially once the web was destroyed. That's how we found out that the web itself seemed to be some kind of unintentional dimensional conduit. Sure enough, when the spiders were freed into this containment chamber to rebuild their web, it immediately lowered the Hume level in the exact same fashion. Fascinating, isn't it? But given that SCP-848 is your new detail, you're going to need to know a little more than this. Since we contained it 15 years ago, this anomaly has killed at least 15 members of Foundation staff. And if we counted D-Class, you'd be looking at triple digits easily. But we don't count them, do we? While the web itself is a passive anomaly, and the spiders pose no risk of containment breach, the unpredictable nature of what can manifest within it day to day has still warranted a Euclid classification. The manifestation rate itself can also be highly unpredictable. I would probably take note of that. Generally, on the low end, you're looking at a single anomaly per week, on what staff have taken to colloquially calling Hell Weeks. Up to a dozen anomalies can manifest each day for multiple days in a row. Let's just say that's not exactly an ideal situation to be in. Of course, if you do end up having a quiet couple of weeks and the spiders get malnourished, you're advised to throw in a few harmless insects from storage to keep them fed. They can act as an extraordinary early warning system for anomalies that we might find ourselves encountering in the future. What other interesting anomalies have manifested in the web over the years? I'm glad you asked. But before I answer, it's already too late to request a transfer. You're here for the long haul. Or until the Foundation decides you aren't. And I'm telling you this as a courtesy to prepare you for what you might be about to encounter. One entity was reptilian in nature. It appeared gasping and thrashing between the threads. It was clear from the viewing window that the entity was unable to breathe our terrestrial air and appeared to be asphyxiating. Personnel observing at the time decided to wait and see what unfolded rather than immediately entering the room. And that was a wise, or lucky, decision, because the creature popped like a balloon in its death throes and coated the entire testing chamber in fluids that would be highly toxic to humans. Messy incidents like this are common when creatures unable to survive the conditions of our universe become caught in SCP-848. As I mentioned with the clock earlier, it isn't just living beings that find themselves getting caught in the interdimensional web. On the more mundane end, small scraps of paper or other rather insignificant objects often turn up, which are periodically removed and incinerated during the bi-monthly cleaning incursions. Other times, the objects that find their way into the web aren't nearly so benign. One incident I have trouble forgetting is when a wooden ruler appeared in the web, still being clutched tightly by a bony skeletal hand. Surely a fortuitous sign. D-Class personnel were dispatched to remove detritus from the chamber, including the ruler, which was initially assumed to be non-anomalous debris carried in by the temporal winds. But when one unfortunate D-Class touched it, his entire manner seemed to change. And any command he gave, those who heard were forced to obey. Not to put too fine a point on it, but the ruler had made him a ruler. His first act was to take command of the contingent of guards sent in to subdue him and force them to shoot each other. The room outside the testing chamber quickly became a bloodbath. The ruler and the D-Class were both destroyed when a Death Foundation sharpshooter took them out with a .50 caliber round that left them highly unidentifiable. Incidents like this have led to personnel dealing with new manifestations in the web with an abundance of caution. It can be hard to know what effects any new anomaly might have. If you find you're not adept at coping with a little uncertainty in life, I'm afraid to say that this definitely isn't the job for you. But please, don't let my stories frighten you too much. You know what fear stands for? It's false evidence appearing real, which is to say, one should always doubt their perceptions while in a fearful state. Instead, engage with caution. Fear leads to irrationality, and that very irrationality can be a tool that dangerous anomalies can use against you. One of the more disturbing incidents began when the observing personnel heard begging and pleading from inside the testing chamber. They were shocked to see that Dr. Mathers, one of the researchers on the case, had somehow gotten stuck in the web. Given that Dr. Mathers is an older gentleman, the guards were naturally concerned that the defensive bites from the spiders might be ruinous to the doctor's health. 2 guards opened the sealed door and rushed into the room to help. But by that point, it was already too late. Mathers harmlessly stepped away from the web, which he appeared to have cut through with what appeared to have been a rusty hand sickle. Without warning, he launched a brutal attack on one of the guards, carving and slashing in a way that seemed to completely bypass his tactical armor. The other guard unloaded a magazine from his standard issue P90 into Dr. Mathers' chest, causing him to collapse to the ground. The guard blinked and saw that Dr. Mathers wasn't laying on the ground, but instead what appeared to be a scarecrow, some kind of anomalous mimic ported in from another dimension. The real Dr. Mathers had been taking a sick day. We've since concluded that the scarecrow entity maintained some kind of psychic link to the guards, allowing it to select and replicate the exact person most likely to lure them into the room. The guard who was attacked with the sickle didn't survive. The scarecrow remained inanimate after taking sustained fire from the surviving guard. I'm aware of what you're thinking right now. Doesn't it seem almost dangerous to keep things going like this? Wouldn't it be safer to just separate the spiders? 1 container each, feed them individually? No web, no opportunity for web formation. And perhaps that would be true, if these were the only anomalies we'd cataloged. But the truth is a little more complicated. You see, sometimes things that have appeared in the web foretold the emergence of anomalies that the Foundation would later discover and contain. This has given us an advanced warning system and the opportunity to develop valuable and realistic countermeasures before things get too out of hand. In one instance, there was a dead, elongated humanoid creature with no face that emerged into the web. The spiders seemed to avoid it instinctively, not out of fear, but because they somehow sensed that it contained no nutritional value whatsoever. Our researchers studied the creature extensively and found that the most striking clue was in its worn and tattered clothes. It seemed to be an a.k.a. employee uniform. We first discovered SCP-3008, the Infinite a.k.a., less than a month later. On another occasion, researchers were shocked to see that a series of crumpled Polaroids were stuck in the web. Each one seemed to express some moment of extreme elation. A man getting married to a beautiful woman, a woman being handed a several billion-dollar check from the Utah State Lottery, a couple pushing a child back and forth on a swing. This seemed to foreshadow the later discovery of SCP-978. The Desire Camera, a Polaroid camera capable of depicting a person's greatest desire in whatever photo is taken of them. Then, a dead SCP Foundation researcher appeared in the web, not one that anyone was able to identify. Naturally, personnel were cautious in their approach, fearing that this could be another situation akin to the murderous scarecrow that had killed the guard. However, after observing a lack of movement for 54 consecutive hours, it was deemed safe to retrieve the corpse. That was when the real revelation began. While the person was not traceable on any Foundation records, ID documentation on his own body said he worked at Site-13. We did not have a Site-13. Stranger still, his cause of death was a shot in the back of the head, consistent with standard issue Foundation guard sidearms. This was our first warning for the emergence of SCP-1730, the terrifying interdimensional Site-13 that would appear a number of years later. And who knows, really, what will be the next anomaly the web will help predict. I hope that through all of this, you've learned to respect the web. It can end your life in an instant, or it can save you, if you keep your wits about you. After all, we can never really know what we'll find tangled up amidst the threads next. Now check out SCP-4663, 3D printed spiders printing printed printers printing spider printers, or Rick and Morty more powerful than SCP Foundation Mad Scientist Battle for more.